Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us 20 minutes after 8 o'clock right here on our election coverage, that is Choice 2013, taking a look at the political party primaries. And we will be speaking with Catherine Amanda from Orange headquarters, and that is what we shall be talking about. We shall also be taking a look now at what happens going forward. Now that we are guaranteed of certain names on the ballot paper, we will be taking a look at that. But let's bring you up to date with what is happening in various areas, of course, across the board as well. Let us then do that. Let me just let you know who we'll have with us. Dismas Mokua is here with us in studio, and he will be talking to us about what's happening in just a moment. But first, before we get into it with Dismas Mokua, let's now tell you what's happening across the pond. And you do know that President Obama officially begins his term today, his second term. So here's what's happening. The Vice President, Joe Biden, was sworn in to begin his second term of office yesterday, hours before President Barack Obama would do the same. The ceremonies are taking place quietly a day before Obama and Biden take their public oaths. That is supposed to happen today in front of the Capitol before a crowd on the National Mall. U.S. President Barack Obama will then be ceremoniously sworn in for his second term in a public inauguration event to be attended by hundreds of thousands of spectators. Now, as is the tradition when the constitutionally mandated swearing in, it falls on Sunday, that was yesterday, but the Chief Justice will administer that oath of office privately, which he did yesterday, and then perform it, of course, in front of the crowds on the Capitol of the Steps. That is today. A second inauguration is what nearly every president hopes to have. But if it arrives, it usually attracts fewer spectators and offers less spectacle. So that is what is happening today. Was sworn in privately yesterday before the crowds today. That is what is happening around the country, of course, internationally. So even as we are grappling with everything that's happening here in the country, do note that President Barack Obama has officially begun his second term in office and his final term that is happening there. Of course, we have to keep tabs with him, having that emotional connection that Kenyans do with President Barack Obama. That's across the waters in the United States. Let's in Mombasa County, obviously a very important one.
Yeah, that one is going to be very exciting because the guys are very rich and they're special interest groups. But what at the end of the day is going to determine the winner in Mombasa is somebody who can squarely address the drugs issue. And from the basic research you've done, that race is going to be determined by who can actually say that I'm going to manage the issue of drugs and at the same time create employment opportunities. But coming back to Nairobi, which is going to be more exciting because it said that the Nairobi governor is going to be second in rank to the President of the Republic of Kenya. Now that promises to be very exciting. And for some strange reason, Nairobians have just been given two choices. On one hand, there is Dr. Evans Kidero and Ferdinand Waititu. And all of them have got different levels of success. I mean, all of them say they were born and brought up in Eastlands. So maybe they started in the same culture, same upbringing. But for some reason, even Skidero has been able to get out of the Eastlands.
They've taken a divergent route.
Divergent route, yeah.
Yes.
So Kidero has been able to get this corporate outlook. And when you look at his campaign manifesto, he says, compared to Waititu, I can go to London, I can go to Joburg and sit with investors in a boardroom and bring money to Nairobi County to create jobs for Nairobians and create business opportunities. In fact, he tells people that look at me, I can get into a negotiation with the president of General Electric, I can speak with anybody and get for you investors. While on the other hand, Waititu says, look, I can relate to the common man. Wherever there is a fire, I'm the first on scene to go and put it off. So
Dismas, which is more important when it comes to being a county governor, and not just of Nairobi, but of all the other counties that we're taking a look at? Is it perhaps still being member of parliament type of thing where I am in parliament to look after my constituents, or is it now about getting opportunities? When you take a look at the two of them, which one rings true to what the county governor should be doing? A, he should be fighting for the common wananchi when land has been grabbed or a school has been hived off, their playground has been hived off, or is it to seeking investment opportunities for the county?
In my view, Nairobi, the biggest source of concern, according to research, is people want jobs and they want the cost of living lowered. And one would imagine that for a governor, not only in Nairobi, across the country, all the governors, their number one responsibility would be to understand Vision 2030, which means that you are supposed to attract investment to the region. And for somebody to run and say that, you know what, I want to defend my people from land grabbing, but in my view it doesn't make sense, because, I mean, you may stop somebody from grabbing land, but I'm sleeping on an empty stomach. So for me, I'd rather that somebody is grabbing land and I'm rich, I've got money in my pocket, I can go elsewhere and get land and, you know,
is that him still being an MP? Is that him still talking as a member of parliament rather than now as the county governor in waiting?
You see, when you look at 22, his approach to issues is creating emotional connection with the voters. And for the voters, they're very excited. If there's a fire in the morning and they see your MP coming around and he gives you, a sack of beans and maize, you're very excited. You say, this guy takes care for me, because we've been reduced to abject poverty. So in the short term, it probably makes sense. But again, that's a firefighting approach to issues. So in my view, a governor is somebody who's supposed to have a long-term objective of the county, and that's probably where Dr. Kidero beats him. And it doesn't matter whether people are going to be grabbing land every day. We now have institutions which are going to manage that. So a governor should be somebody who can actually say, what's the GDP of my county? What do I intend to do? What are the flagship projects? Somebody who can join four dots in a room. And the same is going to extend to Kiambu. Kiambu also, they've got a similar issue. On one hand, they have Dr. Nyoro, with Rockefeller, international connections, and then they have William Kavogo, who is said to have, his track record is a bit complicated. So again, Kiambu being also a very important county in relation to Nairobi, again, people will be required to take a choice. Are we looking for somebody who can go to the UN and address, the UN Assembly, or we are looking for somebody who basically, flies around with a chopper and gives us food?
That's right. Do we understand then, as the electorate, the work of the governor? Because when all of these things are being said, like you raised some very important issues, there are institutions that will deal with land grabbing. There is now a member of parliament who will be for Embakasi that will deal with the constituents of that area and will deal with those issues. But do we as the electorate understand the role of the governor such that when such things are being said, we're able to say, what you're saying doesn't tally in with our expectations of the governor?
Strange enough, Kenya is very literate. Politicians in Kenya are very literate, so are the voters. So majority of the people really understand what's going to be the role of a governor and the role of an MP. And in the unlikely event that the information doesn't make sense to them, now it's incumbent of everybody who is running for governor to tell people, what am I supposed to be doing with your budget? Because this constitution gives them a lot of leeway. They're allowed to enter into international pacts with other countries, other bodies, and get resources for their counties. So it will be a tragedy for voters across the nation to elect governors with an MP in mind, because that's when, again, your economy is going to be stalled for another 5 years.
That's right. So a lot of work the IEBC has to do. Do we still not understand the work of the governor, the work of the senator, the work of the county women's rep? Because we still, Dismas, get questions on our SMS line saying, can the county women's rep be a man? And we still get questions saying, okay, fine, I'm not very clear, especially the distinction between senator and governor. I think that's not clear. Is there enough time for us to get educated?
Of course, there's enough time. In Kenya, our memory space is only 3 weeks, so we've got about 6 weeks to go. So there's a chance for us to engage in that kind of civic education. And believe you me, IBC and the civil society has done very good work. So a large majority of people, in fact, know what is going to happen. I mean, the role of a governor, the role of an MP. Strange enough, it's majority of the guys who are running for governor who do not understand their role. So for them, they're looking at it as a budget allocation.
Right. The people themselves who are running for the position of governor might not be clear about what their duties would be?
Yeah. Majority of them have no idea, because they've been used to parliament. Yes. They've spent all their time in parliament making laws and overseeing the executive. So they do not understand that this is a position which is going to be, you'll be required to work for 12 hours,
yes.
Between 8 in the morning and 8 p.m.
You can't decide to not show up the way they don't for parliamentary proceedings.
Yeah, I mean, now Parliament works for 3 days in a week, yes, with only 5 sessions, and you can afford to miss 9.
Yes.
You can afford to miss 9, you make a technical appearance. But for this position, you'll be required to sit. And that's why voters in Kenya are beginning to ask, let's see your track record. I mean, do you have the capacity to sit in an office for 8 hours? Can you be in a boardroom scenario? Do you understand that your duty as a governor is to create opportunities, addressing issues of insecurity, assuring investors? Like, for instance, what we were discussing earlier on, the governor for Kisumu, he needs to change the perception that you can actually come and invest in Kisumu, so that, Kenyans, including Kisumu residents, can take up a loan and go put up a resort next to the airport.
That's
but
right.
if a governor doesn't do that, then the people suffer.
Okay. Waititu, though, is trying to reach out to the middle class, having meetings with them to, quote unquote, explain himself to the people. Do you think the middle class is buying into that argument, or do you think there's enough time for him to be able to change that sort of aspect? He is who he is, and he makes no apologies for the way he has conducted himself in the past. But the middle class is obviously critical to this election, to this vote for the county governor of Nairobi.
Yeah, unfortunately for Waititu, the train has already left the station, and the timing of this election, majority of the middle class who stay in Nairobi, in prior elections would go back home. Maybe somebody is resident in Mombasa, he would go to Mombasa and get his voting right in Mombasa or Kisumu. But this time around, because it was in the it was at a complicated time, so majority of the middle class have actually voted in Nairobi. And when you saw, they were registered in Nairobi. And when you saw the reactions on Facebook yesterday, people were really throwing stones at Waititu, saying this is the kind of governor that we do not need. So the challenge would be then for the middle class to turn out and go and vote. But for Waititu, I'm not sure whether they have sufficient time to, to convince the middle class and the rich that is a guy to watch.
Okay, all right. And we'll carry on with our discussion, taking a look at the big battles and the issues now going forward, especially now that we are getting to the point where we have confirmed who will be on the ballot and who will not be on that ballot paper come March 4th. And see your take of that. The parties need to do a lot of work internally, and at the same time they have to now get into campaign mode. We know Raila was in Ukambani yesterday, has chosen, I think, to step aside and let the election board sort of deal with it, so that again he's not seen to be meddling. But just what sort of work will be needed within TNA, of course, because they also did suffer quite a bit of upheavals and a bit of setbacks there. What work do political parties need to do now?
In a view, Raila Odinga, as a frontrunner in the presidential race, he should come out and take a decision, because people don't want another president who will be sitting on the fence. I mean, this is really an intricate issue where his family is now entangled with the elections board at CORD. So one would expect for the Prime Minister to issue a statement today and say that I want to sanitize the entire operation, because what people are thinking of right now is this a pointer on how he's going to be running the nation? If, say, Kenya is under attack and as the commander-in-chief of the defense forces, he sits on the face and is not able to take a decision, it's going to be a bad stain on his reputation. So in my view, and maybe his professional team, they should come out and sanitize the entire situation and tell people that this is what we are doing. And one expects the same from Uhuru Kenyatta, because the longer it delays, it complicates the life of Kenyans, and tension begins to brew. Although there are allegations that, again, in Kisumu, that it's probably the competition which is, fanning the fires, pouring a bit of oil to tarnish the image.
Do you think there's any credence to some of those allegations? Do you think the competition could be involved?
Of course, if our politician and my competition is in trouble, I'd like to engage in all manner of mischief to ensure that I stay in his reputation. But be that as it may, it should come out today and calm the waters, because now people are becoming nervous.
All right, let's talk about the others who've finished their nomination exercise. Do they benefit in any way from the mess that we've seen in CORD and Jubilee? Let's talk about Kiapi, let's talk about Martha Karua, Peter Kenneth. They already conducted their exercise. They were done with it, either by direct nomination or otherwise, but they're done. Do you think they suffer because theirs was so peaceful and so straightforward, and this other one is just sort of as complicated as it is? Do they either gain from the chaos that has taken place, or does it not?
It doesn't matter right now, because when you look at the timeline, it's too late, so they don't get to gain anything. Like, say, for Professor Kiapi, for Peter Ken and Martha Karua, they did their nominations in good time, and the reason why there was not a lot of violence or suspicion is that it was not very competitive. Because in TNA or in CORD, the moment you get a ticket, you already you've already won your seat. Right. So even if there is a mischief today in these other political parties, they don't stand to benefit anything. I mean, nobody can defect, and even if they defect, they're not allowed to run.
Are we saying that controversy is good? Does it still, with everything that has happened, with what we saw happening in Nyeri, I remember even when we were reporting about it, the ballot papers were on the way, there was an accident, and then there was no accident, and then we've seen what happened in Kisumu, the wrong ballot papers are taken to the wrong polling center. With all of this that's happened, Dismas, do you think they still benefited from it? Do you think it still made them even more popular? We're still talking about it. And is controversy then a good thing, you know?
I think maybe going back to CORD, for Raila, I think this controversy is very good, because I realized yesterday everybody's complaining about the nominations and nobody is blaming Raila. You know, as they refer to him, wanasema baba kosawa, lakini mtu amefanya makosa ni Bet. So everybody is, you know, blaming Bet. And in the process, his profile is going up the sky and everybody is getting to know about him. Actually, those people are more loyal to Raila than Raila is loyal to himself. Because, you know, they're saying, wow, this is a good guy, but it's the system which is not working, which in my view doesn't make sense, because really the buck stops with Raila. Okay. So controversy for him is very good. It's working for him. I mean, for any politician in the world, controversy is good, but it's how you manage it. But for Raila now, it's gotten to an extent that if he doesn't manage it today, then it's going to be a stain in his campaign. Okay.
So for the ones who are good and who conduct everything peacefully and smoothly, I believe even Martha Karua is quoted in the paper as having said, well, nobody is talking about us, and ours was done 8 days to the deadline, which was the 18th deadline before the extension to today. Does it not pay to do your things right and smoothly and according to the law? Is that what we're saying?
No, of course it pays under ideal circumstances. You know, like if you're to borrow from Ghana, who do their primaries, you know, 1 year in advance. If you had that kind of sanity in Kenya, then it would make a lot of sense. But you saw the spin they're giving it. Like TNA said, you can blame us for logistical issues, but the will of the people has prevailed. So you can see already they've started saying that we are the party that allows the will of the voters to prevail. Right. While on the other party, for TNA, they're saying, so rather, for CORD, they're saying, the will of the people doesn't matter. What matters is that the people who count the votes. And you know, now that's becoming very interesting. Yeah. That, you know, folks can wake up early in the morning in Siaya, queue for 3 days, and their will is not appreciated. In sections of Kisumu, nobody. I mean, elections have not yet taken place. Yes. So people are beginning to wonder, if a party cannot manage a simple primary, then how are they going to run the country? These are the questions people are beginning to ask. Okay.
Going forward now, what do we expect to see? What are some of the values that you think we should be pushing for from our candidates? I know are we still getting to the point where family values are huge, that we want to see these candidates with their wives, want to see how they conduct themselves in their families. Just give us a perspective on what to expect now that we know Waititu is on the ballot, that we know Kidero is on the ballot, that we know in various areas Balala is on the ballot. You know, everything that's happening now. Now campaign begins proper going forward. What do you expect to see? First, what do you think we will see, and what would we like to see, versus what we expect to see and what we would like to see? Sometimes maybe two different things.
Yeah, those are polar opposites. What we are going to see the next couple of days is a lot of propaganda. You're going to see a lot of funny pictures of candidates in funny positions. So it's just going to be propaganda, you know, at gear 5. You know, character assassination is going to be the order of the day. Now, what we'd like to see is issues. Like, for instance, CORD has indicated they're going to offer, you know, free university education. So one would expect to tell us where they're going to get the money from. Right. You know, we're having the revenue deficits. We are not able to pay anybody. We are not able to pay salaries for, you know, our nurses, our teachers. So when a presidential candidate says we are going to have free university education, we expect to see figures. So, I mean, so those are the issues the nation is looking at, people debating. But unfortunately for Kenya, we are not sufficiently matured to tackle those things. So we'll just do with a lot of propaganda. But I'm hoping that maybe during the presidential debates and other debates organized across the nation, then people will begin to question candidates to discuss substantive issues. Okay,
many people are worried about the violence that we're seeing in parts of the country and wondering if that will have any projection whatsoever. What do you see happening?
It's unlikely. You see, the violence is muted, and I like what one of your reporters said, that they were just putting up a fire for, you know, media purposes, for guys to see that we are annoyed. And at the end of it, the policemen and the protesters, you know, they clear the roads, and it's business as usual. So it's unlikely that we are going to have any levels of violence because of the so many peace meetings that have taken place across the nation. So people have been sensitized about the peace process. There's not going to be any levels of violence. And right now, there's going to be personal responsibility. You love a particular candidate, you take up a stone and kill someone or burn somebody's house. Eventually, when the police catch you, it's going to be you. it's not going to be the candidate that is going to be in trouble.
Right.
So probability of us having levels of violence is going to be very minimal.
All right, we'll leave that at that for now. Thank you, Dismas, always for your time coming in and being a part of this very important discourse that we are having in the country. Dismas Mokua, political analyst there. Taking a look at what is happening in the country. It's now 10 minutes to 9 o'clock. We would like to wind up our coverage this morning, but just to remind you that what is coming up in the course of the day today, all eyes will be on what's happening at Orange House. Catherine Omondo is there and keeping her eye on that. We will expect to hear that announcement as to what happens, the fate of the three. We'll also have our eyes on Kisumu. Fred Omulo is there, and we'll be seeing what will be taking place. Remember, the deadline is today, and for a lot of people, I know, we're getting to the point of fatigue with this issue. Can it be done and finished already? Let's talk about other issues. Let's sort of try and build a country between now and March 4th, and that is exactly what we're hoping for today. 5 p.m. being that deadline, and then we can all say, fine, these are the individuals that we've got, this is how we're going forward, these are the issues we would like addressed as ordinary Kenyans from our leaders. So definitely looking forward to that 5 p.m. being that deadline. So thank you for your time. Keep it KTN. We will be giving you all the latest and bringing you up to date with what is happening as we carry on with our election coverage. Remember, you want to keep talking to us, do that on Twitter. That's hashtag Choice 2013. That's all for now right here on KTN. This has been Choice 2013. My name is Yvonne Okwara. Have a great day ahead. We do this again tomorrow bright and early at 6 a.m.